You cannot live without these characters in EpicSeven. And to save your life, I'll teach you everything you need to know about each of these characters so you don't end up like this. Let's get into it. If it weren't obvious, Lua is still one of the game's best characters. 120 base speed, guiding light holder, reset everyone on your team, your mom, your dad, no one else can play the game except for you. This character is pretty disgusting and does get answered somewhat well by Landy, but that's the second best character and this is the first. Lua's ideal set is speed and hit, but immunity is also really good if you happen to fight against Zio and Rowana. However, what's really important is making sure that you survive and have at least 100 effectiveness so that this plague to society all get reset. If you want to talk specifics about speed, you could zoom it up and be 310 plus speed, but most people bounce between 280 and 300 speed anyway. Additionally, this really easy to get and definitely not limited artifact is her best in slot, but Song of Stars comes in second if you want to fuck around with this character. For playstyle, since she provides speed buff, resets the enemy, and is a mix of control and utility, she does really well with characters like Specter Tenebria, Landy, Sid, etc, etc. But what makes Lua really good is the fact that pairing her with characters like Last Rider Krau, Mediator Kawerik, or other tank and slower characters is still really good. You can change the season, but you can't change the game plan. Yes, it's casino season again, and believe it or not, there's a character equally as annoying as Lua or Violet and Rem of previous seasons. Despite being one of the coolest, most interesting characters I've ever seen, this is Jesse and James in disguise with some extra pizzazz. Counter once, counter twice, counter your mom, your dad, your breathing. This character is not only RNG, she makes the whole team RNG too. But in terms of build, counter plus crit, immunity, or any of the other golem sets are ideal with a balance of damage and tankiness. Something like 3k attack, 250 crit damage, and about 17,000 HP, 1300 defense is shooting in the right direction, give or take some. However, what glues the whole build together is pairing counter and Elbrus together. It's unfortunate because it is a 5-star artifact, but there isn't really another alternative to it if you don't have it. And finally, if you really needed a guide on how to use the character who plays herself, pair her with characters like Summer Luluka, Destina, or knights like Arowell and Yulha. The mitigation helps save you from Lionheart Sirmia, Bellona, and other DPS that want to beat up your Landy. And the defense buff, cycling, and healing from Destina causes the enemy opponent to want to claw out their eyes. To go more specific than this is pretty matchup dependent, but in general, if you pick Landy, you're sure to piss off your opponent. It's really incredible that this character has remained relevant in every single season since her release, basically. But with how insane her kit is, it's pretty clear why she deserves her spot on the list. Vigor, strip, pushback, attack down. Even with Summer Luluka and Zio making Conqueror a little bit harder to play, she's still one of the 3 queens of EpicSeven in 2023. Conqueror Lilias has a variety of builds, and unlike characters like Lua, the quality of your gear can be pretty bad so long as you're faster than any of these guys. And even if you aren't, this season has had the most amount of Lilias builds ever. Assuming you run speed plus hit, immunity, or broken set, you have plenty of different builds to choose from. For artifacts, she has as many choices as builds, and you can bounce between Proof of Valor, Circus Fantasia, Bastion of Hope, the music box thing, you name it, you can pick it. This character can be used in nearly every single team possible since no team is going to complain about more defense, more offense, or more utility. Feet Lady is still one of the best characters in EpicSeven today, and if you aren't sure why, just take a look at this kit. Stun on skill 3. Multi-single hit on skill 1, scaling stats on skill 2. She's kind of 2 or 3 characters combined into one. Let's be real. And if it weren't for her laughably bad base stats, she would probably just be the god of the game. When addressing her build, however, she's one of the easiest to gear characters while one of the hardest to get the perfect build on. The average Specter Tenebria build is some combination of speed, destruction, crit, pen, immunity, etc, etc. But nowadays you can also even have some combinations like lifesteal, crit, destruction, immunity, all these different variations. Stats wise, something close to 4k 300 with at least 10,000 HP, 180 speed works perfectly fine, but these numbers fluctuate. Sometimes you want more bulk, sometimes you want less, etc, etc. So long story short, find something close and run it. There are a tiny minority of players who don't choose to run book, but you probably guessed it, Tag of Hells is the best in slot artifact, and Warhorn or Crimson Moon can be okay if you want to pick her into Bellion or some other stuff like that, but I don't play like that. Now, if Lua, Landy, and Conqueror Lilias are the 3 current queens of versatility, Specter Tenebria is the OG. Following the death of Arby and the rise of Book, this character has been used or usable in every single aggressive or cleave team possible. There has never been a moment where having an additional damage dealing, untargetable, book holding DPS was a bad thing. So with that in mind, taking her with characters like Ran, Pera, Lilias, Zio, These all work very well. But despite that, she shines just as brightly even among characters like Mediator Kawerik, Destina, and tankier bruisers like Apoc. Ah, Zio. My literal worst nightmare. This character doubles as E7's greatest ally and enemy to those who want to play fast. Take a character who's guaranteed to start his turn first, can hold book, can do damage, cannot be resisted. Now while he also has a lot of builds that you can choose from, 3 stand out as the most common. The first is as a full effectiveness debuffer at about 260 speed and anywhere from 180 to 250 effectiveness. The second is as a full damage carry playstyle where you protect them as a solo DPS with decent bulk and damage. And the third is a hybrid of the two where you still have around 100-ish effectiveness and a watered down amount of bulk and damage compared to the last build. All 3 builds are viable and have their strengths depending on playstyle, so whichever you choose to build is totally fine. In all honesty though, Zio is pretty ridiculous, and there are probably more builds like on stuff like Destruction, Lifesteal, Injury, etc., but we won't talk about that here. His artifact choice is pretty skewed, with Book usually taking the cake, but Bloody Rose and Time Matter are good assuming you choose to play around them. Book allows Zio to pivot, whereas Bloody Rose gives effectiveness and the ability to lifesteal. Time Matter is funny if you choose to run a carry Zio build, since it does allow you to get DFI buff before it wears off on Zio. But ultimately, Zio is so versatile that you can cleave with him, you can be fast, you can be slow, you can pivot, etc. You can do whatever you want. Rowana, Rand, Jacko are all the usual suspects when it comes to who he enjoys being paired with, but even taking him with Specter Tenebria, Last Rider Krau, or Destina can lead to surefire success. And tied for the second most frustrating character to fight of all time, it's the Light Angel herself, Angelica. Being a mage, she can hold cheese artifacts like Knowledge Seed, constantly spam S3 with Spirit's Breath, or just use the most versatile artifact in the game, Tag Hell's Ancient Book. For sets, you can run anything between Speed Hit, Speed Immunity, Speed HP, Speed plus your mom. But so long as you hit the stat line you're looking for, you'll be fine. Most people look for a mix of high bulk and somewhere between 100 and 200 effectiveness, while alternative mixed builds have bulk, take turn 1, have 100 effect res and 130 effectiveness. Now I haven't really mentioned what Angel of Light does yet, but in case anyone forgot because she's been pre-banned for so long, she AoE strips, silences, cleanses whenever she's hit by an AoE. Yeah, this is not a balanced character. Bike Man is one of the most used knight characters in the game. He was once a portrait symbol of unity holder used to smash Specter Tenebria or weak characters turn 1, but now you just run him on Aureus and he tanks everything and still runs you over anyways. So in short, having north of 1500 defense while maintaining anywhere between 25 to 30,000 HP is ideal. In terms of artifacts, there isn't too much to decide on aside from whether you want to cheese with Holy Sack, do big damage with Portrait, be normal and use Adamant Shield or Aureus, his ability to counter AoE characters like Valiant, Sylvan Sage, and Senyo with his AoE barrier, him giving 2-turn immunity, and of course him running over everyone is pretty good. But him being a knight alone is pretty valuable since he can use mitigation artifacts like Aureus or Adamant Shield. And as a result, picking him early is kind of risk-free. So in addition to providing mitigation for characters like Lua, Specter Tenebria, or even Apoc Ravi, he also does a stupid amount of damage if you don't keep him in check. Hand Guy, Mediator Kawerik, our Lord God and Savior. This is a guy with a lot of names, but equally as many uses. If it weren't for the influx of players trying to end the game in 20 seconds, the introduction of Sharoon, and Lua looking over your shoulder, this character would have nearly zero competition in the first pick slot. But alas, he's only really good, not desk-smashingly OP. Kawerik and Angel of Light handshake their builds with both being able to flex between effect resist, effectiveness, full bulk, etc, etc. But Kawerik also has a little bit of potential in the DPS department. Regardless, he's always kept speed set as his core 4-piece, but he's flexed between HP, defense, immunity, hit set, just based on build. Something that isn't super dependent on his build, however, is his artifact. Warhorn and Music Box are simply too good to be comparable, but Sepulchrum, Proof of Valor, and an MLM or Runka artifact for a team-wide attack and, I don't know, the ability to maybe strip Rylet or Adin could also work. You didn't hear this from me though. In terms of when or how to play with Mediator Kawerik, there's not a lot to think about at the baseline. But he is one of the most complicated characters to play at the high end. A full strip, barrier, and attack down on S2, a full cleanse, and the inability to be debuffed by one-turn debuffs. That's most of them, by the way. I will say that he's one of the most disgusting characters when played well, and he pretty much sets the bar for how good team compositions need to be, or else they just get run over by him. At the end of the day, if someone picks something like Mediator Kawerik and Briar, Specter Tenebria, or Landy, you're probably dead if you're not good enough. Adin was once laughed at as the main character who would never be able to fit Roz's shoes, but now she decimates literally everyone and their mother. Of course, she now has her weaknesses. I'm looking at you, Zahak and Briar. But even in worst case scenarios, Adin dissuades most aggressive picks in the game. Something of note is that she is another insanely gear dependent character, and her ability to 1v4 heavily depends on your gear and build. But in a majority of games, having her on speed, destruction, lifesteal, and then bouncing between torrent, immunity, and pen usually results in an Adin solo. And again, assuming you gear her well and use any of the mentioned combos for set and artifact, you'll be fine. Being fast, being slow, having bulk, having damage, all builds work well so long as you know what you're doing. Currently, Adin is one of the best answers to characters like Rand, Para, and Zeo. Using a team-wide attack while Adin is on the field usually results in Adin either taking a turn or dealing significant damage back to the enemy. But the ultimate downfall of Adin are these two extremely popular characters in EpicSeven right now. The first is Karina, who beats up Adin without even touching her, of course, very balanced. And the second is Briarwitch Iceria, who does only have an 80% chance to hit her with Guiding Light. But even with these two weaknesses, she remains one of the game's best characters simply because she restricts most openers from being able to debuff your team. And last but not least, the tied for best in class knight, Arowell. Full strip on S3, 50 free effectiveness, 35 free F-res, built-in combat readiness push whenever an ally got hit, a barrier to herself and any character that's light, built-in super Aureus. Arowell is the Mediator Kawerik of knights, and it's not close. Funnily enough, she also does really well into Mediator Kawerik because of her full strip. But that's besides the point. Let's talk about builds. Knights have historically been forgotten or pushed to the side in favor of farming for better DPS, bruiser, or speed gear. But in recent times, having a well-geared Aureus holder is the difference maker, especially in a meta with a load of damage dealer. Now for sets, she works perfectly well with counter or speed set, and the two-piece to complement the build can range from HP, defense, immunity, or resist. But a big thing to remember with this build, however, is that her Aureus is a buff that you don't want stripped. So having at least 100 effectiveness is key. Additionally, she does get 50 effectiveness as a buff, so finding 25 to 50 effectiveness in your build to allow the stunning of characters like Karina, LRK, or other low resistance characters is ideal. When choosing the perfect artifact for her, look no further than Adamant Shield, Halag Lance, or Holy Sack in order to piss off enemies even further. Okay, telling people how to play Arowell is pretty funny, because honestly, so long as you pick and pair her with healers, bruisers, and DPS, you're probably going to take home a few wins. Some minor tips would definitely include holding off using her stun until the cleansers have used their skills. But in general, don't overlap barriers like Mediator S2 and Arowell S3. Use her skills or strip with her S1 or S3 when you're looking to remove buffs. And suddenly you're here with the rest of us. Anyways guys, that's everything I know about the top 10 characters in EpicSeven. I wish I was joking, but you'll likely see these characters every single day if you play RTA. As always guys, make sure to like, comment, turn the notification bell. Let me know what you think about this top 10 list, if you would change anything, if you remove anything, all that jazz, and subscribe. And if you'd like, take a gander at my socials like Twitch, Twitter, Discord, TikTok, all that jazz. Thank you so much. I post all my thoughts, give help, and anything in between on those platforms. But that's gonna be it for me though guys. I'll see you all next time. Adios.